and he put a picture of the new Stealth driver. And in Australia, it costs $1,000, which I believe, looking on Google at the exchange rate, is about 550 quid. So a bit more than it is over here, but, kind of similar-ish price. And he said, this is starting to get ludicrous. This is the cheapest I can find on off-the-shelf Stealth for, and it's $1,000
US dollars.
In fact, it's 1,100. Sorry, Australian dollars. 1,100 Australian dollars. I fully understand the whole saying, if you don't like it, well, don't buy it. And last year, I bought a Callaway driver that was $800. But this is becoming silly now. Surely something needs to be done or can be done to bring these prices back so normal everyday people can afford these toys. Am I the only one that thinks these sort of prices are driving the cost of everything else associated with golf sky high? I am all for everyone wanting to make a decent living, but it's becoming stupid. I hate the idea of using a regulated market, but it's getting to the point where it kind of needs some regulating, from the golf polo shirts to trousers to hats to golf balls, etc. Surely I'm not the only one who thinks like this. Maybe Rick and other golf influencers need to start talking more about these prices with a louder voice. So I replied to him.
The price of the TaylorMade Stealth was 1,100 Australian dollars.
That's just killed me ears. So I had a response to him, and I want to hear your take on this. I think this is something that a lot of people are interested in. Simple question. Are golf clubs getting too expensive?
Obviously, that's the situation where it's in Australia, and it does seem like it is more inflated over there, exchange rates or whatever it may be. Yes and no. And it doesn't answer your question greatly, but it's not new for drivers to be £500 a driver. Like, I remember almost 10 years ago, like the first ERC, do you remember that came out?
I had it second hand as a junior, and it was still dead expensive.
That was like £500.
Yeah. And that was like almost going up to 20 years ago, the first one now.
So I don't feel like any of this is that new.
No.
Like, Pro V1s have been steadily expensive for 20 years. Yeah. Golf clothing, it depends on what brand you get it, but it is expensive. But on the flip side, I do really think, and we've done a few videos on it recently, you can still get brand new equipment, or you can still get very good equipment or second-hand equipment at a much better price. For the example, the TaylorMade M4 driver review I just did last week, that was brand new off the shelf, £279. Now, I don't know if it's in Australia or how much that would be, but that's £200 less than the Stealth. Now, it's got its limitations. You can't always get perfectly fitted or whatever it may be. But you saw from that video, I actually preferred the feel, the sound, and somewhat the performance of the M4 driver. Now, you could argue that I still think, but this is where the brands are pushing it, I would say probably everything is 10% slightly too expensive. But also everything else in the world is right now. Because at the moment, with obviously coronavirus and everything going on now with, Ukraine, etc., shipping costs go up.
Yeah.
Material costs go up. Unfortunately, it's just the way of the world. These top players' sponsorship fees go up.
Yeah.
R&D development goes up.
Yeah.
All of these categories, the price increases. And in every industry, when the price increases in the manufacturing, unfortunately, it gets passed over to the customer. They have to stomach up the more fee.
Yeah.
So as much as I do think there is a point now where brands are pricier, expensive, I still think we've never been in a better position than where a lot of second-hand product or even new product like the TaylorMade M4 that's come out recently, the new one, I feel like brands are addressing it, but in a different way.
I think as well, I think I obviously don't want golf brands to start charging more because it doesn't benefit our listeners, our viewers that go out and buy gear. So I'm definitely not one that's pro-expensive. However, I do think it's a funny one. I'm just looking at an example here. So the Odyssey 2 ball, the kind of white-hot OG version, is 199 quid now. When that launched in about 03, 04, and in fact it was early, it was 02 it launched, it was 139 quid. I remember once when I was a junior and didn't ever get one because it did for a long time after, but they were so expensive at the time. So in terms of, it's gone up 60 quid, but in 20 years, that does kind of align, I believe, with inflation. But what really kind of struck me about the point that Derek was making was that if we're wanting that premium stuff, it's because we're almost falling for, and I use that word loosely, the marketing claims of the brands. We all kind of know now, a lot of people know that watch YouTube or listen to this podcast or are really into the golf world, that year on year, there's very, very little that changes in golf clubs. Is that even over the last 5 or 10 years, really? So if you suddenly decide that you want the TaylorMade driver, but you're not happy that it's 500 quid, well, that's the price it is. You know, Rolexes are 10, 20, 30, 40 grand, obviously upwards. A Ferrari is however much. Now, I'm not saying that TaylorMade is the Ferrari or the Rolex of golf, but you can buy a Casio for 10 quid. It still tells the time. You know, golf can be expensive, but I'm very passionate in telling people that golf isn't expensive, full stop.
Yeah.
Because as we've proven before, you can go to Sports Direct, not for 1 second plug in Sports Direct, but it's where you can get the cheapest golf stuff from. You can get a driver for $17.99.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, as a sport, golf is definitely more expensive than like a football where you only need literally a ball and you can play on the park. You do need a club, you do need a ball, you do need typically a golf bag and correct shoes, and it does add up overall. So we know it's not the cheapest sport in the world, but if you're into golf, you don't have to spend a fortune to continue that hobby on your equipment.
Yeah.
So it's almost like people get annoyed because they want it.
Of course.
Which is, it's not like, you know, if energy prices go up and gas goes up and water rates go up, we as essentials, we have a right to be upset about that because it's people, like petrol goes up or whatever. But if golf clubs go up, I think it's kind of like, well, don't buy them unless... Yeah. You see what I mean?
Yeah, and it sounds like he's bought one just recently.
Well, he has, yeah.
He bought one last year with the Callaway driver.
And he said apparently he's not after this one. He was just looking at it. But it's like, well, I kind of get it. You know, it's like football shirts. If you've got a junior son or daughter who wants a new Stealth drive for their birthday and it's 500 quid and they're desperate for it, it's a lot of money. And if you're going to fork out for them, it's a lot of money. But again, we know that Ben Ross, Wilson, Cleveland, these other kind of semi-premium brands make clubs that perform pretty much as well.
Yeah.
But we want the sexier brands because the marketing's so good.
Well, I'm always fascinated, again, going back to the story at the driving range. Yesterday, with my 3 hours being there, when I was walking up and down the driving range, I mean, it was so busy yesterday. But in every bay was, you know, a golfer with second-hand golf clubs, let's say, okay? But hand-me-downs, whatever it may be. In the next bay was another golfer with brand new everything, like spent $5 grand on their equipment. Next person had like just a few clubs. Next person hired some clubs. They're all playing golf.
Exactly.
And none of them looked like the guy who had the most expensive equipment didn't look like he was going to be the best golfer. As such, he might have been, but he didn't look it. And like you can get a little bit lost in it. And I think prices of equipment it reflects the current market and everything else. And I can understand people's annoyance if they want it. But as you've made some really good points, I want a Ferrari.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's the price of a Ferrari.
We'll just touch on your point then. When I was at the range on Saturday, out of the 2 days I was there this weekend, there's a lad who was left-handed who was kind of facing me in the bay. A bit awkward, really, because I'm hitting that when he's looking at each other in the eye almost every shot. And he said, I listened to the podcast. I was like, oh, great, whatever. And he said, I love Rick's videos, love the podcast. So I was chatting
great,
to
whatever.
him. Yeah, you know what I mean? I didn't want to, I was like, great, chatting to him for a bit. And he was really made up. We just bought a set of irons from the shop from American Golf. And they were second-hand Ping G15s. It's quite old irons, but in really decent condition. And he got them for 150 quid.
Amazing.
And I was like, mate, they're he was like, yeah. I said, honestly, like, unless you want something that's brand new in a wrapper, which obviously he wasn't bothered about, that is an amazing deal.
Yeah.
And also, I think lastly on this, again, I know the prices are getting up and up and up, but TaylorMade, Callaway, etc. have absolutely huge global teams who look at the merchandising, the buying of parts, etc. They won't just think of a price off the top of their head and go, we'll call it 500 quid then. They know
it's calculated.
there's a massive demand for it.
Yeah.
So when they start charging too much and people don't buy the products, that might be the time when they start decreasing them. But until that day happens, I don't think it ever will. It's just part of golf, isn't it?